Welcome to an in-depth analysis of the most polarizing moments in the octagon. In the world of the Ultimate Fighting Championship, few things ignite more passion and fury than a robbery, a decision so baffling it leaves fans, analysts, and even the fighters themselves in a state of shock. Today, we aren't just looking at close fights, we are examining the statistical anomalies and judging discrepancies that defined three of the most controversial decisions in recent history. From the lights of Las Vegas to global pay-per-view stages, these moments represent a critical intersection of sportsmanship, data, and the human error inherent in subjective scoring. We will deconstruct the 10-point must system and analyze why these specific bouts remain a stain on the record for many purists. This is not just about who won or lost, it is about the integrity of the sport and the data that often tells a very different story than the official scorecards.
To understand these robberies, we must first understand the rules. The UFC utilizes the 10-point must system, where the winner of a round receives 10 points and the loser receives 9 or fewer. Judges are instructed to prioritize effective striking and grappling. If those are equal, they look at effective aggressiveness, and finally, cage control. However, the ambiguity of effective often leads to vastly different interpretations. A fighter might land more strikes, but if their opponent lands the harder shots, who wins? This subjectivity is the breeding ground for controversy. Critics argue that the current criteria are too vague, allowing judges to weigh a single flashy moment over 15 minutes of technical dominance. As we dive into our top three, keep these criteria in mind: striking, grappling, aggression, and control. Does the data support the judge's eyes, or did the system fail the athletes? At UFC 282, the world watched as rising star Paddy the Baddy Pimblett took on Jared Gordon. While Pimblett brought the hype, Gordon brought the pressure. For 3 rounds, Gordon seemed to neutralize the Liverpool native, particularly in the third round, where Gordon controlled the clinch for several minutes. When the announcer read 29-28 for Pimblett across all 3 scorecards, the T-Mobile Arena erupted, not in cheers, but in confusion. The decision was immediately labeled a robbery by almost every major MMA media outlet. This fight serves as a prime example of how star power and octagon presence might subconsciously influence those sitting ringside, even when the grappling metrics suggest a clear winner for the underdog. The fallout was immense, sparking a conversation about whether the UFC's promotional interests align with fair officiating. If we look at the numbers for Pimblett versus Gordon, the robbery narrative gains significant weight. Jared Gordon amassed 6 minutes and 35 seconds of control time compared to Pimblett's negligible grappling success. In the third round alone, Gordon held Pimblett against defense for over 4 minutes, effectively nullifying any offense. Out of 24 major media members tracked by MMA Decisions, 23 scored the fight for Jared Gordon, with some even seeing it as a 30-27 shutout. This discrepancy between professional analysts and the 3 official judges is staggering. It highlights a recurring issue where damage, often defined by the optics of a strike, is weighed so heavily that total dominance in grappling is ignored. Gordon landed 60 significant strikes to Pimblett's 63, but the control time was the undeniable factor that the judges seemingly dismissed entirely. UFC 280 featured a bantamweight clash that many believed would be a changing of the guard or a reality check for Sean O'Malley. Facing the former champion Peter Yan, O'Malley was the massive underdog. The fight was a technical masterpiece, but it ended in a split decision that left the Abu Dhabi crowd stunned. Yan utilized his wrestling effectively, securing 6 takedowns and maintaining control for over 5 minutes of the 15-minute bout. Despite this, 2 of the 3 judges favored O'Malley's volume and the damage he inflicted with his striking, particularly a knee that opened a significant cut on Yan. The debate here centers on impact versus control. Did Yan's wrestling do enough to win, or did O'Malley's ability to hurt the Russian champion outweigh the grappling sequences? The MMA community remains deeply divided on this one. The Yan versus O'Malley fight is often cited as the turning point for the new unified rules, which prioritize effective striking/grappling as a single tier. The judges who favored O'Malley argued that his strikes were more impactful and closer to finishing the fight. However, Jan's supporters point to his 5 minutes and 44 seconds of control time and his 6 successful takedowns. Statistically, Jan outlanded O'Malley in total strikes, 97 to 91, though O'Malley had the edge in significant strikes at 84 to 58. This fight represents the ultimate philosophical divide in MMA judging. Do you reward the person who is winning the fight through control, or the person who is damaging their opponent more? When the decision was announced, even O'Malley looked surprised, and the stats suggest that by traditional metrics, Jan had done more than enough to secure the win. The most significant robbery in the eyes of many fans occurred at UFC 247, where the pound-for-pound king, Jon Jones, defended his light heavyweight title against Dominic Reyes. For the first 3 rounds, Reyes appeared to outwork, outstrike, and outmaneuver the champion. He was faster, more accurate, and seemed to have Jones on the defensive for the first time in years. However, when the scores were read, Jones was awarded a unanimous decision, including one scorecard that read 49-46, meaning one judge only gave Reyes a single round. The MMA world was aghast. Many believed Reyes had clearly won the first 3 rounds, while Jones took the championship rounds 4 and 5. This fight is the gold standard for judging controversy because it involved the sport's greatest athlete and a title that many believe should have changed hands that night. When we dive into the metrics of Jones versus Reyes, the controversy only deepens. Dominic Reyes outlanded Jon Jones in total significant strikes, 116 to 104. More importantly, in the first 3 rounds, Reyes outlanded Jones 82 to 59. Jones's path to victory relied on his pressure in the final 10 minutes and his 2 successful takedowns late in the fight, though Reyes got back up almost instantly. The 49-46 scorecard remains one of the most criticized in UFC history, as it suggested that Reyes didn't even win the 2nd or 3rd rounds, which most observers saw as clearly his. This decision didn't just affect 2 fighters, it altered the trajectory of the light heavyweight division and cemented the idea that to beat a long-standing champion, a challenger must leave no doubt, a standard that isn't actually in the rulebook.
The impact of these decisions goes far beyond a single win or loss. For a fighter like Jared Gordon or Dominic Reyes, a robbery can mean the loss of half their fight purse, win bonus, a lower ranking, and a significantly longer path back to a title shot. For the fans, it creates a sense of disillusionment and distrust in the sport's officiating. If the data and the visual evidence don't match the result, the sport begins to feel like entertainment, where narratives outweigh performance. There have been calls for major reforms, including open scoring, where the scores are revealed to the corners and the public after each round. This would allow fighters to know exactly where they stand and potentially eliminate the shock of a bad decision at the end of the night. However, the athletic commissions have been slow to adopt such changes.
As we have seen through the cases of Pimblett versus Gordon, O'Malley versus Jan, and Jones versus Reyes, the line between a close fight and a robbery is often drawn by the data. While MMA will always have a level of subjectivity, the outcry following these 3 bouts suggests that the current system is due for an overhaul. Whether it's better training for judges, the implementation of open scoring, or a more rigid adherence to statistical data, the sport must evolve to ensure that the person who truly wins inside the cage is the one who has their hand raised. As fans and students of the game, our role is to keep the conversation going and demand the highest standards of integrity for the athletes who risk everything. What do you think? Was Jones versus Reyes the biggest robbery, or does another fight take the top spot? Let us know your thoughts as we continue to monitor the evolution of the UFC.